Yeah.
Sergeant Major Goff.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for taking the time
Yeah.
to meet with us today. I'm Dave Foreman. I'm with Munro Defense. I'm happy to be here at Camp Grayling with Sergeant Major Goff. Sergeant Major Goff, can you talk a little bit about what the mission here is at Camp Grayling and the Multi-Domain Warfighter Center?
Yeah. So Exercise Northern Strike is a National Guard Bureau sponsored exercise. We have usually about 6,000 or 7,000 multi-service, multi-component, so active duty, National Guard, Reserve, from the Air Force, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard's involved, and we all come together for about 2 weeks in the summer for our big exercise, and then we have a smaller version of that at the end of January every year.
There's a lot of units involved, and there's a lot of different states involved. Can you talk a little bit about the different units? What are their missions, and what are you really trying to learn here during this exercise?
Yeah, I would say that there are a lot of things, but maybe one of the more important things would be just the overall command and control and a joint effort with all the different units. We have about 100 coming in this year, anywhere from infantry, we've got the sustainment folks, field artillery. The Air Force is bringing a lot of different assets on the fixed wing side, and this year we've seen a lot of plus up on the uncrewed systems that are involved in the exercise. So it's really, we like to call it a watering hole. We have a great environment here in northern Michigan, not just in the lower peninsula. We have folks up in the upper peninsula as well. So space-wise, it's hard to beat the amount of land space we have. We have a ton of special use airspace, which the air side likes to use, and then just getting the folks on the ground talking to the folks in the air. And then we've got a lot more maritime this year. Still a pretty small footprint compared to the other domains of warfare that we do here, but I think we're building that up now.
Over the years, how has this exercise transitioned and grown to start to bring in the different services, as well as inviting industry partners? How's it really grown? And it's an invite only, so the units really invite those technologies into their units for what they want to see and how they want to integrate. So
yeah, on the technology side, I think Michigan is an ideal place to do this. We have the arsenal of democracy. I think a lot of people call that down in the Detroit area. Yeah. A long history of supporting just the overall national defense effort. So being able to start there, I think, with a good core group of companies that want to participate, they want to help out, they want to get feedback from us, and on the uniform side, we want to see what the next thing is, because we're not training for the war today. We're training for the war of the future. So this is readiness. Training is that's our core. That's what we do here. We train uniform folks for their next trip overseas. So giving them an opportunity to touch it and integrate it into their training, I think, is a special opportunity for them when they come here.
You spoke earlier about UAVs, drones. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of press on that lately, and what has been happening. And how are you guys looking at driving that into your mission, your training, as well as how do you kind of fight what is kind of a low technology, but you can be really overwhelmed with that technology as well?
Sure. Yeah, I would call that a moving target. So it wouldn't be necessarily a specific technology that we're trying to get here. It would be more giving them an opportunity to put it in their existing training plan, put it in their planning process to have some piece of technology and understand how that fits into their planning process, because whatever that is today, it's going to evolve and it's going to be different 6 months from now or a year from now. So we don't look to bring in a specific UAV system, or we've got autonomous maritime vehicles this year. We've got autonomous ground vehicles out here this year. I don't expect those same things to be here next year because they're going to evolve. The fight's going to be different. So I think it's an opportunity to see what it is and how you can incorporate that into your planning, and then be ready for the next thing when it does come out.
Yeah. There's a lot of, again, discussions around, the counter UAVs, right? Is how do we counter the threat, especially in swarm technologies and different things like that? Are those things that you guys are also looking at?
Yeah, well, there's a few companies here that have some different capabilities. I would say that's probably more important than being on the offense. Maybe a good defense is the best offense when it comes to that stuff. But it's really just understanding what the threat is going to be or what it could be. Because I don't think people that haven't experienced it in real time, like right now, and whatever conflicts are happening, they don't know what the threat is until they get there. So I think just understanding how to use whatever you have in the best way possible, I think that's what we're trying to do.
We're really lucky as a country to be where we're at, right? We don't have a lot of, threats here in the homeland, the same that we may see in other countries, such as Ukraine. So working with allied countries, how are they bringing to us a little bit more like intelligence and knowledge that really helps us to also train our people and understand some of the different threats that are out there before we get involved in it?
Well, we don't fight alone, so I think bringing in as many different perspectives on that side of it, I think, is important. So I think that's why we emphasize bringing in your international partners when you come here. The state partnership programs from all the different National Guard states, we encourage them to bring their partners here and go through training side by side with them, and we encourage them to bring their ideas if they have interesting technologies or things that they want to try out when they're here. We'll do what we can to make sure that happens.
So behind us we have kind of a map here of the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
Enormous amount of territory that this exercise covers. And it's not just state land, there's some private land as well, where we have private citizens that are really providing some of the land to do some of these different exercises, such as you talked about the quarry earlier. Can you just talk a little bit about the space, from 300 feet to 5,000 feet, and from the water, the land, and just the whole environment that we have?
Yeah, it's very unique, very expansive, and I think the take home there is that it is co-use. We're not the only ones using that space. There are civilians out there. There's private companies out there, and I think it's ensuring that we have a good partnership with them, and we're good neighbors, I think, is what we want to be at the end of the day. So we have this year a lot of folks up in the Upper Peninsula. We have folks out on the Lake Huron, Alpena, Rogers City Quarry you mentioned.
Yeah.
So I think making sure at the end of the day that we are good partners with all the folks that are involved in the National All-Domain Warfighting Center. You probably heard that. Yeah. We call it the NADWIC here. It truly is all of Michigan, and it's a joint effort, not just on the Army Guard side and the Air Guard side, but the industry, the state, the different law enforcement agencies that we work with throughout the space to ensure that we're doing the right thing, and they're partnered with us all throughout the whole process.
Yeah, you had mentioned 200 or so firefighters that come here and train to fight fires and other things like that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, I think our team, we have Chief Warrant Officer 4, Lee Fuller, has been here for a number of years and really grown that program from just the Camp Grayling firefighters that have to manage the space. And I think we talked about it earlier, the exercise has grown from a few hundred to now we're up, over 7,000 this year. one small fire department can't handle that. So he brings in local EMS from multiple counties just within the Camp Grayling space, and then they have folks over in Alpena working at the airfield there with all the additional aircraft. I think it was last night they did a rehearsal. So they bring in a mobile aircraft fire trainer, set it on fire, and it's a training exercise so the right people know it's happening. But it's a large aircraft fire that takes multiple units to respond to. So they did that as kind of a rehearsal validation that they're ready to support large-scale exercise like this. And then that's just the exercise side with the downed aircraft. If that scenario were to take place and they train throughout the exercise on those kinds of things. But on the real world side, we had the devastating ice storm that took place all throughout northern Michigan. So you have dead trees. There's a lot of fuel out there right now. It's been hot, a lot of dry days. So we have Bambi buckets at the ready with the rotary wing guys. So you might see them if there is a fire that pops up, see them dipping into the lake, picking up water and dumping it. And then the firefighters, part of their training and their readiness is to be certified in wildland fires. So you might see them out there doing controlled burns, helping out the local community while they're here, but also being ready to respond to things that may pop up while we're here.
Right. Being part of the National Guard, everyone or most are all civilians as well when the weekend is over or when the exercise is over. So they'll bring a lot of this training, a lot of this knowledge back to hopefully some of the real world world work that they're kind of doing as well. So
yeah.
Well, great. Is there anything else you would like to talk about?
Appreciate your time. Yeah, it's great.
Well,
Welcome to Northern Michigan.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Good morning, General
Good
Wog.
morning,
How are you doing?
Good to meet you. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for the invite. I appreciate being out here. My name's David Foreman. I'm with Munro Defense, and I'm here with Brigadier General Wog. He is running the Northern Strike exercise here in Camp Grayling. So can you talk a little bit about yourself and what your mission is this year on Northern Strike?
Sure can. Well, thanks for the opportunity to talk a little bit about the exercise and who we are. So I'm Brigadier General Robbie Wog. I'm the Army component commander here, formerly assistant to the Adjutant General Army. So I've got the Army component lead on behalf of my boss, Major General Paul Rogers. And Northern Strike is a biannual exercise, and the things we're doing here really are focusing on those joint force tasks, ultimately broken down to the service component level, but also integrating partners and allies to get after both, I would say, the Homeland Defense spectrum into deployment, full-scale, large-scale combat operations focused missions and tasks, things that we have to do in a joint force to be successful in conflict.
So what is unique about Michigan and the advantages that we have here that makes us very central to this exercise?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love talking about Michigan. I think that one of the advantages we really have in Michigan is we have an all-domain environment. And if you look at Michigan geographically and you picture the hand, we use the mitten. A lot of land, of course. I mean, that's where I come from, the land component, about 200,000 acres of accessible, usable land with incredible frequency availability, spectrum availability, and that's something that we don't think about. But if you consider future warfare, even current warfare, electronic warfare, uncrewed systems, we need that spectrum. And the Midwest and the upper Midwest is really, really great for the spectrum availability. We have the domains of water and air. Our airspace here is really second to none. It's the closest comparable is really far out west in the Nevada Nellis Air Force Base region. So the access to those domains, in addition to space and cyber, and we've got things here we've done with cyber range capabilities that we built, access to space enablers, space formations, back to availability in the spectrum, which is also important in the space domain. It gives us an advantage, and I think that those domains, fighting through all domains and understanding that as we talk conflict, and I won't even say future conflict, I'll say conflict right now. Mm-hmm. Conflict right now is conflict that involves all domains, Junior leaders, lieutenants, sergeants have to be fluent in all domains. We have to understand that when we deploy, even before we deploy from the homeland, we will be observed in all domains, we'll be in contact in all domains, and we have to be able to fight through that and get ultimately, to the actual place we need to do whatever it is we need to do, be successful, and return home. Michigan is a unique training space and a unique capability in the National Guard, but broadly in the Department of Defense enterprise, and really inventory of a place that you can come and do all those things in all domains, in all weather, and get the access you need.
It's a multi-domain warfighter center, but as I mentioned earlier, it's more of an international multi-domain warfighter center. So you have at least 10 allied countries that are here training during this exercise. So what are the benefits that they bring, the lessons learned, and how do we really learn to work with those components?
Yeah, that's such a critical part of who we are. We'll never fight in a vacuum. We don't, right? We'll always fight with our allies and partners. The United States has a few strategic advantages, I believe, over our adversaries. And one of the most critical is we have allies and partners, true allies and partners, treaty allies, congressionally informed, requirements on how we work with allies and partners. Bringing allies and partners into the exercise. One, we have some advantages in the National Guard. We have this program called the State Partnership Program that started in '93. We were the first one in Michigan with our partner Latvia. And that's grown to over 115 countries now across the 54 states, territories, and D.C. That gives us access to allies and partners to bring them here. And of course, in their territories and nations, access, basing, and overflight, that kind of access that is so critical for combatant commanders and for the joint force. But bringing allies and partners here in a large-scale combat operation training environment, it forces the things in the interoperability vein to work together, and that's across functions. That's sharing communications, and sometimes it's really simple things, but it's things that you want to work out in training and not in conflict. How to hitch a NATO trailer to a U.S. system that might not be compatible. Those are things we find out here. Those are things you want to find out here, develop a solution for. Maybe it's material, maybe it's a training solution, before you go to conflict. And with our partners, and we've got partners here from all the combatant commands. We're learning together, we're training together. We went through a very detailed exercise life cycle event to get us to this point, multiple planning iterations that start about, execution minus around 400 days, from a site survey all the way through detailed planning, ultimately to the final planning conference, and then a series of rehearsals to get us to the point that we can function and fight together, whether it's communications, fires, engagement, lethal fires, non-lethal fires, those type of things. So working with those partners early on and developing that process is critical to the exercise.
How do you continue to grow the partnership in other countries and start to really get them much more involved? I looked at your timeline. You guys have grown quite a bit over the years, year to year to year, a lot of continued growth. So how do you continue to bring other partners into this?
That's another good question. I think the short answer is just what we're doing right now. You and I, this is one of the ways, marketing, building a narrative, messaging who we are and what we do, finding those media outlets, those different sources, partners in industry, and sharing what we do, who we are, what you can gain from it. We are a place that, and we're learning every day and growing, and it's making my leaders and my soldiers and my partners better on my Air Guard partners here in Michigan. But it's also an opportunity for us, and when we bring other joint partners in and allies and partners from different nations, that's how we grow. They come back and our best messengers, our best voice out there, our soldiers, leaders, sailors, airmen, Marines, allies, partners who've come here, had a successful rotation, did something that they couldn't do anywhere else. got a rep that they couldn't get anywhere else, worked with people that they couldn't work with anywhere else, and go out and then vocalize that. And that's industry, that's uniformed, and that's helping us build this network over time. Because it's been, and I remember when this thing started, and it was, a company commander and a maybe a forward observer and a terminal attack controller, and we're working with some aircraft and some small maneuver elements, and it's just grown every year. And I think now where we are is we're at a position where we want to continue to expand that because people see it. They see the success in it. We give them things that are specific to them. I think that the thing we really offer a commander coming in is we can tailor this exercise to their training objectives. We can scale it to what they need it to be based on their unit type, function, size, formation, and we can integrate them with whom they want to integrate with. And if they don't want the industry piece or they don't want to work with, fine. We have a massive training complex. We can put them in and maybe we tie them in virtually through an exercise common scenario, right? Decisive action, in this case, an Indo-PACOM scenario. Or they want to be fully integrated, and we can do that. That's that tailorability and really flexibility that I think a lot of commanders are interested in, why they keep coming back.
Yeah, leads me into my next question. That is, we talk about partners, and the industry is a big part of that partnership. But we're really here to support the needs of the warfighter, right? Yeah. And the industry that is here is, it's your leaders that say, yes, I need you, I want you, and this is how we together can start to drive some of the technology and other things that we really need to do to protect the warfighter and to just ensure that at the end of the day, everyone is kind of safe. And also you have a very unique setup here within Camp Grayling that allows companies to come here and test products and do things that they can't do in other places.
Yeah, that's a really critical component to this thing, and maybe not something that we identified when we started the exercise. And I really I appreciate General Rogers, my boss, and his vision and what he's done to get us to the point where we have industry partners, and we all agree we need to get this technology in the hands of our soldiers and our airmen, our Marines, our sailors, before they're in conflict. We also look at the current threat, the pacing threat. We look at how we're leveraging our own acquisitions, which can be less than timely from the DoD perspective. So if we have a way to get technology, and it's less about the specific capability or the specific piece of equipment, I should say, and more about a broader capability. What are we trying to do? Maybe it's a counter uncrewed system capability. Maybe it's a counter electronic warfare capability. Getting soldiers familiar with tactics, techniques, procedures from a protection standpoint. Maybe it's an offensive capability, but getting their hands on, getting them exposed to this technology, talking to industry partners, learning from industry partners. We were doing this. I was a battalion commander here. I've done a couple rotations as a battalion commander years ago, 16, 17. And I integrated technology at the time, some autonomous capability and even tethered UAS platforms because I wanted to. And I wanted to get my soldiers exposed to these things before they got exposed to them in conflict for the first time. Resupply. And we have 200 plus industry partners that are here this year. We want them out here. We want them to test and break things. We want to get soldiers the ability to go back to them and say, this isn't working, and here's what we think you can do to modify it. And what a great place. It's a sketchboard where you can come and do all these things in a discrete environment, and you can do those things up to and including a live setting, and then get that real feedback and take it right back to your lab, take it right back to your facility where you work. We have a lot of course, tremendous capability right here in Michigan. The arsenal of democracy is still alive and well, and that is something that we've leveraged, we continue to leverage, and that's given us access to industry partners that other states and training facilities just simply don't have.
How do industry partners who are not involved get involved with you?
So that's one, the network, right? So we are tightly tied in with all of our industry networks and folks like NDIA and partnerships, not just in Michigan but regionally and then nationally. Look for us. We go to all the AUSA. We go to all the conferences. You'll always see a Michigan booth. Look us up if you just go do a search for Northern Strike or National All-Domain Warfighting Center. You'll find us. But we are out there in the defense space, in the industry space, and right now that network continues to grow. So if you're an industry partner, you've got an idea, you think this might be a place where you want to try something, you want to test something, maybe discrete by yourself, maybe you want live settings, soldier, live conditions, tell us. And we will find that solution. We have a very, very strong culture of yes in Michigan. We want to get capabilities and technology and marry industry partners with uniformed soldiers and airmen because we want to not have that lesson learned in conflict. We want to do it now. We want to get capabilities in soldiers' hands now, and we want to partner with those industry elements now to figure this stuff out in the right time. But reach out to us and let us know how we can help because we're very, very interested in growing the network.
All right. So before we end this, I'd like to know a little bit more about General Walker. What are your beliefs? Why are you in this, and what are your values? Where we kind of learn who our leaders really are and what they stand for.
It's a good question. It's goes back a long way. Why am I in this? The most important reason I'm in this. Maybe a decision I make or maybe something I do in this position can give a soldier an advantage, can help them. Maybe I've learned enough and I've made mistakes every day for my entire career. Maybe I can pass on one of those mistakes, and maybe by doing so, that soldier will be better empowered and better enabled. Maybe I can develop the next generation of leader. I think the most important thing I do right now is developing the next generation of soldier and leader, and doing what I can to enable them. Accountability, professionalism. We are part of a profession. I've always believed that. I do have skin in the game as well. I've got 3 kids and 2 of them are in uniform. One's my youngest daughter is an Air Force officer and my son is a rifle platoon leader in 82nd. And I want them to be well led and well trained and well equipped. But that commitment to me has started years ago is to the soldier, serving the soldier, for the soldier, enabling them, setting conditions for them. I never said go easy on them, but training them to standard, ensuring that whenever that is, that whatever that deployment, if it's a homeland scenario, a homeland defense scenario, if it's a large-scale combat operation or anything in the middle of that spectrum of conflict, I will not be the leader who says they weren't ready because I didn't train them. Mm-hmm. Right? I can't control the weather, I can't control the enemy, but I can control the things I can do here to train soldiers and get them ready, develop leaders, and get them wire brushed for whatever that next thing is. That's my commitment to them.
Absolutely. So with that, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate
it. John Rogers, thank you for inviting me out here.
Thank you. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, absolutely. We interviewed, I think, about a year ago.
Yeah. Pretty close to that. Yep.
You said maybe we should come out to Northern Strike. Maybe we'll get some exciting things in the background. So we just finished witnessing the A-10 Warthogs and the Apache.
Cobra, Marine Corps Cobra, and Marine Corps Huey gunships.
Live fire. We don't really ever have an opportunity to see things like that, so I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it brings some reality to the conversation about defense when they're in the background doing their thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Good training exercise, and that's what Northern Strike's all about. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The primary focus is building warfighting readiness across a joint force. So everybody that comes here has goals for their training. We help them and then they help each other. So the units train together, they set up cooperative agreements so that they can benefit from one another.
And it's an international
It is.
exercise. A lot of partners from around the country, and I think we saw that just here in the live fire exercises with the A10.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
We have 10 different countries, and they total probably somewhere around 900, maybe 1,000 partner forces.
yeah. And what we have, 7,500 of your own forces here.
It's 7,500, including the international partners. Yeah, and that's from all services and all components, active to reserve components of those services.
So, what type of exercises are you guys conducting throughout the state of Michigan?
So it varies significantly. So there's 112 different units here training over this 2-week period. They all have their specialty that they're training, but then that interoperability between U.S. forces or with U.S. and multinational forces. So it's everywhere from special forces, artillery, of course the aviation we saw here today, Marine Corps Aviation, Air Force. We had B-2 bombers in Oscoda this week training. And we have training going on out on Lake Huron. So it varies significantly. And that's really the dynamic nature of this exercise and why this exercise is so unique throughout the country.
And besides the water and land, air, you have space, you have communications, intelligence, and other things that are all happening here in this multi-disciplinary domain.
Yep. Yeah, there's 5 warfighting domains that we reference. So the typical ones are land, air, and sea. But then you also have space domain, which is prominent. And then you have the electromagnetic domain, sometimes referred to as cyber, sometimes it's electronic warfare, as you're using electronic means to jam and disrupt other people's ability to fight or to destroy their systems.
So what are you seeing today in some of the conflicts that we have in different parts of the world, and how is that affecting the training mission and how you adapt here?
Yeah, so the character of war is always evolving, and it evolves much more rapidly when nations are at war. So right now, of course, the most prominent one is what's happening between Russia and Ukraine. And we're seeing new techniques, new technologies being introduced into that conflict. And we're learning from observing. For 2 or 3 decades, the rest of the world was watching us fight in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they were learning while watching us. Now we are watching others at war, and we are drawing out valuable lessons, not just based on technology, but also based on what they're doing. And we have rocket fire in the background as we speak.
Great. So I'm going to look at my notes a little bit here. So what type of capability gaps do you think that Northern Strike in Camp Grayling is helping close?
Yeah. So the capability gaps, it's really that our ability to replicate the warfighting environments in most parts of the world right here in one geographic location. So we have a 4-season environment. So we get the very cold winter months, we get the warm summer months, and then of course all 5 domains, which is very unusual. You can go somewhere and usually they'll have 3 of the 5 domains, but it's very rare that you find all 5 domains. So what we can do here is train simultaneously maritime operations, space operations, land, air, and again within the electromagnetic spectrum, the cyber type warfare, the jamming warfare. We can do it all at once. So when we start to look at capabilities, we can start looking at multi-domain capabilities. What works in certain environments that doesn't necessarily work in another environment. The easy example is hot weather versus cold weather. But even then, when you start to look at other interoperability across domains, you can bring that all together here, and you can bring the latest technologies in with the latest techniques and tactics that we're seeing on the battlefield, and we can integrate it all here in a live training environment like you're seeing behind us.
Yeah. And it's the leaders are really choosing the type of technologies they want to test, they want to look at within their own units. And you have more than 200 industry partners, I believe, at this event working along with the forces.
We do. We have 68 separate companies represented, and employees of those companies total about 270. And you have employees distributed within the training units that are here training. And this is really a culmination of a year-long planning exercise where, starting in September of a year, units will identify their interest in coming to the next August's training event, Northern Strike. And we start that military planning based on their required training tasks and the readiness that they're trying to build and the experiences that they want. And then about halfway through that cycle, we bring in all industries that have solutions and an interest in integrating with units on the ground. And then through a meeting between industry and those units, they agree as to who's going to work with who. And it's really an organic relationship. You may have a technology, I have a training desire, and those two things match. So we choose to work together. And then they spend the last half of that planning year preparing for what's going to happen on the ground. And then when they get here, you've got industry and the units that are training coming together with shared goals, shared benefit, and trying to learn from one another and exchange ideas. So it's really a great way of energizing innovation, operationalizing innovation, helping industries know what works in a real world environment and what benefits warfighters in a real world scenario. But then it also gives an opportunity for the warfighter to get exposed to the newest technologies that are emerging and how they can harness that innovation for the benefit of their mission. So it's learning on both sides, but it's also helping refine each other and improve each other.
So a lot of you're talking about refining technology and partners bringing technology. Are there times that you find that you guys are actually driving new challenges for developing technology and driving change?
Absolutely. That's a key part of it. Everybody's learning, right? So I can paint this in both directions, but if industry has an idea of a technology and how it could benefit the warfighter, there's no better opportunity than those two working together. And maybe what the industry thought was going to prove the beneficial needs to be refined and improved, and that development cycle accelerated. So industries that are here are typically changing and updating their systems, especially if they're software enabled, real time, and they're introducing an upgrade while they're training with that unit. So it's not like you collect data, you go home, you come back 6 months later. It's sometimes within the same day that they're making those improvements. So we're accelerating the innovation of that capability, and we're accelerating the learning of the warfighter as to how that capability can affect their missions.
Yeah. When we talk about integrated, IPT teams all the time, engineers and manufacturing, everyone working together to execute better systems faster, and same thing here with the soldier and the partners that we have in industry to just launch things quicker. It seems that the war's changing all the time, and you have to adapt to that all the time. With what you've seen with drones in the Ukraine and other things, how has that really changed your training here, and what are you guys doing to basically maybe look towards the next threat?
Yeah, again, we call it the character of war. It is significantly influenced by technology. And the faster technology changes, the more of an impact it has on our warfighting, our tactics, our techniques, our ability to harness the potential of a technology. But in order to really take those lessons to bear, you have to have your hands on the technology. You can't just watch somebody else do it and be able to implement it. You have to draw those conclusions yourself. So when we see things, new technologies, new capabilities on the battlefield, and we can bring them here in a training environment, and then units that would not normally get exposed to that get access to it through a partnership with industry. Now they are getting exposed to the latest and greatest technologies. They're catching up with what others have learned through wartime experience, but then they're also refining one another. And I keep going back to that because there's no perfect solution. And every technology that comes needs to be modified and changed. And even in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine, you see how they're changing almost constantly the technology and the tactics because they're competing. It's a cat and mouse. And as soon as somebody introduces a new technology or a new technique, the other one responds to it to counter it. So it goes back and forth. We can create that in a training environment that can accelerate U.S. businesses and help them meet the market demand when the time comes.
I really enjoy speaking with you and learning a lot more about what the services are doing and what they're being trained in, but I don't feel like a lot of the public necessarily understands everything, and we hope to bring some of that to the channel. Is there anything that if you were to want to tell like a non-military type of mindset, what would you tell them?
You know, that's a very broad question, and without a narrow context, it's really hard to understand. But I often coach my own service members to be students of their profession. So it's up to every individual to commit themselves to study, to read, to understand what's going on in the world, to understand where technologies are going, and learn from other people's experiences. So being a student of a profession means that you're committed individually to trying to be the best member of that profession that you can be. And the military is a profession. So if there's a lesson I would encourage everybody to do is to be a student of the global politics, be a student of technologies, be aware of the cyber risks that exist, because they exist in our vehicles, they exist in our homes, they exist in our financial backing, our financial systems. And we live amongst these risks without maybe spending the time to understand them. You don't want to get to the point where you fear the unknown. So let's take the unknown and let's better understand it. And then there's much less to fear. And then we can recover, we can take care of one another, we can preserve our way of life back here, while service members go to wherever they have to.
Right. You see a lot on social media, and social media in itself can be very dangerous depending on who is actually creating the message, and it's not always created domestically. It's created to create fear. And I think that's an early breakdown of society in some ways. The important piece is, as you said, read, learn, and try to understand the truth as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a unified people with purpose and a common will are impossible to defeat. And the Japanese learned that when they attacked Pearl Harbor. So anything a foreign adversary can do to sow dissent, mistrust within a society, to attack civil systems and in organizations, just to create internal strife, that weakens a country, and that weakens the unity of a country and the will of that country to stand up to an opponent. So there's no doubt there are foreign adversaries very actively attacking our institutions that we've trusted for decades and trying to get us to fight amongst one another. And then, of course, you have the cyber type attacks. You have all of that could be layered on top. Then we see it routinely if you really pay attention. So there's an ongoing conflict that's below the radar that most people, they hear about, but they don't really connect. And there's a lot of tension in our society that's really generated from overseas.
Well, again, I really appreciate your time, your invite out here. You don't get to see really cool stuff like this.
Yep.
We talked about it. I think there's something coming right overhead. So where do you see the future? of training, and what's the next step, and any last minute remarks?
Well, I'll tell you, training is dynamic, and we need to stay dynamic. We need to ever evolve being a student of the profession. We need to understand the capability of our existing systems. We have to understand the potential capability of emerging technologies, and we can't be afraid to bring it together real time to learn and take those lessons home and then reevaluate ourselves. I think exceptional organizations and exceptional people always self-critique. They always take lessons from how well they're doing, and then they focus on improving themselves. And that's the key to the U.S. military success. It's an exceptional community, exceptional people who are not afraid to admit when they're making a mistake and then focus on improving themselves over time.
All right. Well, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.